There's two ways to make money while you sleep, and that's one, own a business, or two, own real estate. What's the worst that could happen? Like, this is the time to take risks. This is the time to go for it.
Welcome. You're listening to the Apartment Investing Show. This is where you'll learn how to start or scale your apartment investing career. Your host, Adam Adams, could really go for some Indian food right about now. Adam and his guests will show you how to create residual income by investing in apartment communities. Now, here's your host, Adam AAA Adams.
Welcome back to the Creative Real Estate Podcast. I am your host, Adam AAA Adams. And what we're going to be talking a little bit about today is just your journey. Your journey. You're the listener, and you're trying to figure out how to go just from where you are to really crush it in multifamily, and to really just crush it in real estate, and to have your dreams come true. And I understand that you are where you are, and you see the vision of where you could be. And I have a wonderful guest, a good friend of mine on the show, who is going to be able to kind of share his journey and how he got to where he is. And he's not super old. He just had his 30th birthday this year, right, William?
That's right. Big 3-0.
Big 3-0. So this is William Walker, and he's just crushing it in multifamily. So just to give you an example, he and his business partner have really been closing deals left and right in a time, as we're recording, where I feel like my company, we're not having an easy time finding that next deal at all. And I know a lot of other people that are really having a hard time just getting that next deal. But in this time where the market is tight, where some people are wondering if they should just back out of the market completely. Some people are wondering if they need to hang their multifamily hats up on the side of the wall. William and his business partner have really honestly been crushing it. As we record, they have 3 deals that they're really working on, in the under contract type phase, where one of them's, they're getting the funding ready and lined up, and a couple of them are getting close to there. There's other teams that are really having a hard time. So we're not just going to talk about all the successes and everything that he's done with Ernst & Young and all the things that he's accomplished, even at such a young age, but we're also going to dive into just kind of like his journey, the process, which I wanted to have him on because I thought that it was going to help you, the listeners. So we're going to talk about multifamily for sure. We're going to talk about the grit and everything that it took for him to get to where he is, and everything that he did as a CPA, everything that he did. He was actually, an appraiser, I think, for Georgia, right?
Yeah, registered appraiser for Georgia through Ernst & Young. Wasn't the complete license, but it's a multi-step process to get there. But yeah, one of the many things that I did to try and get experience.
I love it. And so you've done a lot of the right things, and I want you to kind of share with us your journey. So your whole bio is going to come out in this journey, but I want to take it from a place of like really what you're going through while you're taking these steps toward, ultimate financial freedom and the success that you've achieved already. How you found your partner, what you were worried about, what were you going through. And I think I'll probably take a step back and ask fewer questions than I ask most of my guests, and let you kind of just take us through your journey. And if I feel like there's something that we need to dive in, I'll definitely bring it up. But I'm going to turn it over to William Walker, and I'm going to let him kind of share with you, where he started and where he is right now, and of course, where he plans to be in the next few years. So, William, Give us that history. Where did it all start? Why did you get into real estate in the first place? What were you thinking about? And I'll let you take it away.
Yeah, sounds good. Thanks, Adam. The journey is definitely near and dear to me. So happy to dive into it. I'll take it back even a little further than my real estate days. I started working for a family-owned business when I was about 12, washing cars and cutting grass in the summer and after school. So I learned the value of hard labor at a very early age, and fast forward into school and more formal type occupations. I did a couple internships in college and got a good taste of the corporate world. Started in logistics and was doing some transportation coordinating. I worked for Unilever North America for a summer doing data analyst work, but I got a good feel for what it was like sitting in the corporate world at a cubicle and a desk. So it wasn't the right life for me. And that was really what spurred me to look for something more. I'd grown up knowing know how to work hard. My dad was in the car business, wasn't a multi-generational real estate guy, but taught me to work hard. And then in school, I kind of learned that, okay, this corporate thing is probably not for me either. So I remember picking up a book by Warren Buffett. It was one of his books. And ultimately, what I took from it was there's two ways to make money while you sleep. And that's one, own a business, or two, own real estate. So I kind of toyed around with that for a little while and was a big advocate of the podcast and in self-education, and still am. So when I first got turned on to the multifamily and the real estate team was in 2014, going through school, in the accounting program, just trying to figure it out. I'd done a couple internships. I knew that I didn't want to go back into the corporate world, but I was looking for more. So I thought single family was the way to go and was the route for me, and started with a goal of having 100 single family houses. And I ended up buying 2. And I realized that this is not the best or the easiest way to accomplish this, but that got me started. And, a lot of things happened between then, and I did a lot of self-education. But coming out of school in 2015, I convinced a local bank that I had a relationship with one of the lending officers through a friend of mine, childhood friend of mine, to give me a mortgage based on a piece of paper from EY saying, hey, we're gonna hire William this coming summer. So I was able to leverage that, get a mortgage through this banker. I think they turned around and flipped it to the secondary market within the month. So the risk was off the table for them, but it got me started. And I moved 3 friends from school into that house and started renting it out. I was able to pay for the taxes, the insurance, mortgage, PITI, and most of my carrying costs. But it made a little money on the side, and more importantly, taught me how to be a landlord / live-in friend, live-in landlord, and kind of cut my teeth. So 12 months into that deal, I borrowed 20% to put down on the property, and after about 12 months time, I fully paid that amount off, and I had some equity in the deal, so I was able to leverage that equity and get a HELOC and buy my second property, which was a little condo in Nashville. And at that time, I was toying around with bigger stuff and trying to figure out how I could scale quicker. And at the time, I was working for Ernst & Young as a CPA. I studied accounting and finance going through school. So I was just learning the ropes, cutting my teeth, studying as much as I could, getting experience, networking. It felt like it was a common triangle of study, network, try and get experience. And went to work for EY a year out of school as an auditor, had those 2 rental properties, and I realized that I needed to get more experience in the commercial and the multifamily space. And I found a group within the company I was working for. It was the Transaction Real Estate Group. They were based in major markets around the country, but didn't have one in Nashville. So I actually started cold calling people in this group using the internal database that I had available to me, and basically would just call people in this group and say, hey, I'm William. I'm interested in what you're doing, and I want to know more. So much to the point where, 6 months later, I had called enough people where they knew who I was in this department before anybody had met me or any hiring person had met me. But I ultimately got in touch with the right individual, and I think he took a liking to a little bit of my tenacity, and he offered for me to come down and interview. And that was a huge breaking point. I'd done some local real estate things with Real Estate Investors Association and some of the smaller groups in my home city. I'd gotten 2 small rental properties, but this was a big breaking point for me because it gave me access to institutional sized deals, and lucky enough, the Atlanta office was mostly focused on multifamily. So coming into that group, I got some great experience. I worked on a large transaction back in 2016 when Mid-America purchased Post Properties. Was a consultant on that role and got to see all the models that those guys were using, who they were raising money from, how they were putting deals together. And at the same time, I joined a networking and coaching group that kind of gave me insight and access into people people doing similar things on a smaller scale. So I was working all the time. We were working probably 10 to 12-hour days at EY, the corporate auditor life on the real estate side. We were still supporting the audit team just from a real estate standpoint. Yeah, go ahead.
So I want to interrupt just for a second to make sure that I have a good understanding of
Sure.
where we were here. So this is around 2000, I think 15, that you started cold calling people in this multifamily group.
Yeah, that's right. When I first started working for Ernst & Young, it was in 2015 as an auditor, and I started calling people in that real estate practice within the firm to learn more about what they were doing, ultimately trying to go work for that group.
Okay, so help me understand, this was kind of like not, Ernst & Young wasn't asking you to please call like certain people. It was you in 2015 with 2 houses, 2 rentals, knowing that you really want to get into multifamily investing. So you took advantage of all the phone numbers, and you just wanted to reach out to people and start to grow and connect with people that were doing multifamily. Is that kind of what it was looking like?
Yeah, that's right. It was actually discouraged within the firm. They wanted you to talk to the right HR people, let them know you weren't happy, then they would help you find something else kind of thing. But I knew I wanted to be in real estate full time. I knew I was working for Ernst & Young, and they had this real estate practice that was down in Atlanta. So I just started calling people from the Atlanta office, and I basically said, hey, I want to learn about what you're doing. And I did it enough times that somebody eventually offered me an interview down there. Alan Hollander, I'll forever owe Alan a debt of gratitude for sure.
Okay, so here you are, 25 years old, something close to this?
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Okay, so 25, and you got a great job. You got a great role at a great company, but you knew you wanted more. You knew that you wanted to get in real estate. And I feel like many of the listeners, many of us as human beings, number one, I think we're afraid. We're afraid to go outside of our comfort zone. We're afraid to take action. We're afraid to have rejection. We're afraid to get in trouble by not calling HR first. Most of us, I believe, we don't take the action because there's many ways that the action could hurt us, or theoretically in our mind, we feel like it could hurt us. So what did it take for a 25-year-old working at a great company to go outside of your comfort zone and to take matters into your own hands and make absolute certain that you are going to succeed? And how can we encourage the listener who has the same fear that you obviously were feeling before each and every one of those phone calls, especially the first one, and so much tenacity that you would call so many people that you finally got a result? Because there is what's the word for it? When I look at everybody who's been on my show, there's something that all of them have in common. The successful people.
Yeah.
A trend. Yeah, that's great. There's this common trait within the people that usually come on my show, and they look back, is the fact that most of them called more than one person. Most of them went outside their comfort zone. Most of them knocked on more than one door. Most of them got rejected by a certain amount of brokers, but they still called that 100th broker. It's that determination, that relentless nature that really makes somebody who's never come on the show and might not come on a show, and someone like you who's crushing it right now, has 3 deals you're working on when there's other teams that are having a really hard time. So there was a turning point for you at the age of 25 when you were working at this company. And I want to make sure that we don't skip past it, but we take that learning lesson from what it took for you to, like I said before, push past the comfort zone, call not only the first or the second or the third. How many people did you call on this list, by the way?
Yeah, I can't remember. It was, it was the internal database, the email Outlook database, and I would just look at anybody in that group in the Atlanta office and started calling. So I couldn't tell you how many it took me
Give me an
to call
idea.
before I
Was
got
it 5
to the
to
right
10,
one.
10 to 20,
I'd say
20 to 50?
at least 5 to 10. It was probably at least 10 before anybody even started paying attention. But it's a small enough group that once I called 10 people, people were like, "Who's this guy that keeps calling?"
All
But,
right. So how did you do this? How did this happen?
I think, I read something recently that really resonated with me, and it was, if you have a strong enough why, you can overcome almost any how. And for me, that why was, I had grown up with a middle-class family with most of the things I needed, but I had to work hard my whole life. And in 2009, 2010, the recession hit my family and people in my family, like it hit a lot of people in this country. And I saw my mom have to give up a house. I saw her go through hard times. And I think when you see people that struggle and that, at one time, we're such a rock for you, it kind of, it spurred something into me. So I go back to that point in time, and I really, that was the first time really being sober to the fact that, hey, I'm not resistant to the economy, or my family's not resistant to the economy, and people that I know and love and trusted and thought, support me, I might have to end up supporting. So that was a really big learning lesson and just maturity growing thing for me at the time. But kind of lit a fire under me, and I was nervous, and I was scared of what would happen if I reached out to these people and it wasn't received well. But at the end of the day, I knew that if I didn't try, then I would never know, and I was okay with failing ultimately, and I was okay with not getting the answer I wanted, but I wasn't okay with not trying. And I just got to the point where I was willing to do almost anything to get the goal and the outcome that I desired.
Okay. I want to back up a little bit to your first house. You mentioned that you borrowed the 20%, and I want to understand logistically how that happened, only because I know that there's people that say that you can't, borrow money for the down payment because it needs to be, like, I guess, vested or in your bank account for a certain amount of time, and they need a paper trail, and they're always watching this stuff and all that kind of jazz that I hear all the time about how this can work. But you didn't let that stop you. You didn't let the 20% stop you. You still found a way, and that was another, I think, turning point for you. So if you could just give us a bit more detail, what you were going through, what you were thinking, what you're running into as you were, like, wanting to close this first property, and just how you made it happen.
Yeah, I was very green at the time, and I wanted to avoid the PMI insurance, so I was looking at putting a larger amount down. I borrowed that 20% from a family member who put me under kind of a short-term hard money type loan. My term on that loan was supposed to be 2 years and a variable interest rate at the time. So it was pretty tough during that first year. I was basically, any money that I earned from rent was going back into paying that down, and any extra money that I had disposable in me was really going to pay that loan down. But it got me into the first deal, and now I've got that loan paid off, and I was just looking at refinancing that mortgage from a 4.25 interest rate down to something with a 3 in front of it. But looking back, it wasn't the best or the most proud deal I've ever done, but it got me in the game and it got me started. That property had a little hair on it. It was in a flood zone, but I leveraged my network. I had a good friend from high school whose mom was a loan officer for a local bank. She gave me a shot at the mortgage. I would have been able to get by with 5% down on a FHA loan at the time, but I wanted to avoid PMI. So I went to my network and I said, who's willing to give me a loan out here? And I ultimately found somebody that did, and was able to get that deal financed. But it wasn't super profitable the first year, but more importantly, it got me started. And it was reassurance that it could be done. And now I've got a considerable amount of equity built in that home. I'm looking at Airbnb in it, and I kind of see it as a little bit of a sentimental thing because, it just got me started. It's definitely not the biggest deal we're working on or the most exciting, but I think if you've got a strong enough why, you can overcome almost anyhow.
Okay. So let's just fast forward a bit. So there was that first deal,
Yeah.
and then you got your second deal, and then you decided to cold call, and nothing stopped you because you had a strong enough why. And your next step that you mentioned was joining a coaching and a networking program where you could meet the right people to connect with, and you could make sure that you were educated in all the parts, even though you worked in this industry for a while and you were really on all sides of it already. But you decided, I'm going to join this. So my big question to you, with everything that you had done up until now, you had experience, you had been a part of companies that were already closing these deals. I think one of the companies that you worked with closed like a 25,000 unit portfolio. And
Yeah, that's right.
and so you're involved in all of this, and you've experienced this on all accounts, but you still decided, this is the right path for me, was to join a mentoring program where you had a really good network. So if you could just explain kind of like your thought process, or whatever you were worried about, or whatever you thought that it would help you accomplish, like basically why you decided to join that, even with the rest of the tenacity that you had. You were going to make it happen anyway, I think.
Yeah, I was like a hungry dog backed in the corner at the time. I moved, fast forward to 2016. I had those two deals under contract. It took me about 8 to 12 months from starting calling to landing the position. So moved to Atlanta in September of 16 and immediately started working on those corporate clients, and got a really fast education on how those larger deals were getting done. But at the same time, it just seemed so far off. I mean, we're talking about hundreds of millions of dollars trading hands to get these portfolios done, and large companies that had been in, business for years and years. But at the same time, I knew that people were putting these deals together on a smaller scale. So I saw it from the institutional side, but I couldn't work out in my mind how that was getting to more of a boots on the ground, is what I say, more entrepreneurial. So it was actually, I just remembered this. I was having coffee with a friend of mine who was in the real estate business. His dad was a developer. Maybe a week or two before I was destined to leave for Atlanta, and he was in real estate, was successful in his own right. So I just had coffee with him and was getting his advice. And he said, you need to read this book. And the book was Multifamily Millions. And I read that book and I go, this makes a lot of sense. And when I got to Atlanta and I saw the larger deals being done, I'm like, okay, it's not too far off. So that was kind of the seed in my mind that was planted, and ultimately got involved in that group through that recommendation. But I would say just looking for any possible way to get more educated and to understand the business better. And I was getting a lot of that on the corporate side, but not quite what I felt like I needed to do. So ended up, and I didn't have a lot of money at the time. I think if I had an HVAC go out at that point, I probably would have bankrupted myself. I was just, covering my high interest rate second loan on my down payment for my first house, all those expenses and carrying costs. The second one was cash flowing pretty well, but a couple $100 a month isn't going to go very far. Still a good return on the amount of money that was put into it. So. And I say that because this coaching group and program wasn't cheap. They're not inexpensive. And I put a bunch of money on a credit card at the time that I didn't have to join this group. And I don't necessarily recommend doing that. But for me, I'm one of those people that when my back's against the wall, I kind of perform at my best. So I wanted to be in a position, I was ready to be in a position where I was really ready to dedicate everything I had to making this work. And I ended up staying with that group about 8 or 9 months. I met my now business partner in the networking group, but with Ernst & Young, one of the biggest decisions, and we talk about journeys and fears, one of the biggest fears was leaving that group in the following spring of 2017 in March. So I remember I called a couple of people that were trusted confidants of mine and, just told them what I was thinking about doing. And, they had my best interest at heart, but I don't think that they wanted to encourage me to leave. But ultimately, I was burned out. I felt like I had good experience with the networking and the coaching group, but I had so little time working on the corporate side that I just couldn't even, go approach deals. I remember I had a coach for 3 months, and it was during busy season at Ernst & Young, so I didn't feel like I had enough time to really dedicate to it, and I was kind of beating myself up over that. I had food poisoning in early March of 2017, and I can't remember the breaking point, but I just remember sitting in my cubicle thinking, like, there's got to be more to this, and I was confident in my abilities to get it done. But at the end of the day, I remember thinking, what's the worst that could happen? Like, this is the time to take risks. This is the time to go for it for me. And ultimately, it was back to that similar mindset that I found, when I started cold calling people in the tree group was, the fear of failure was not as great as the fear of not trying or not trying and ultimately failing and not trying. So I remember it was probably March 21st. I called my senior manager who had given me the job, offering me the position. I told him where I was coming from and what I was planning on doing, and he encouraged me, he supported me, and said that he had come out of entrepreneurial things in the past, and he gave me some validation, and it made it a little easier on me to leave. But that was just the start of the journey, and over the next, I'd say, 10 to 12 months of it was a struggle. It was peanut butter and honey sandwiches and ramen noodles, because I had just left a great job. I had 2 properties that were sustaining themselves, but not paying me a ton of money, and I had no income coming in. So that really put me in a situation where it was do or die. And I moved back home into one of the first property I bought, and the 3 roommates that had thought they had finally gotten rid of me probably. We were living in a 3-bedroom house with 4 guys, but I just started hustling. I was at every real estate meeting. I was networking. I was meeting with investors. I was hunting deals. I was driving for dollars. Single family is kind of what I fell back into during that time because it was comfortable for me. But I realized if I ever wanted to get into the bigger stuff, I really had to focus. So I started working with some smaller investment groups in Chattanooga that were buying portfolios of single family homes, and I ended up helping find an 18-unit multifamily deal for a couple investors that I shared in on. And that was like my first multifamily commercial hit. So that gave me confidence to keep going. And I made a little money off that supported me for a little while longer. But I lived very frugal. I made a lot of sacrifices. I never went out. I didn't have a girlfriend at the time. I didn't have a nice car. So all these things that I think that some people probably prioritize, it allowed me to do what I was doing and focus all my time on finding deals. And ultimately, and finding the right people that were doing the deal.
I love it. Awesome stuff. All right. So what I'd like to do is I feel like there's so much possibility, potential out there in the world that we can make money in many, many ways. And what I want to really get into is 2 things. I want to finish up today's episode really understanding why you chose multifamily. Like, you were a CPA, you're a registered appraiser, and you ended up looking at a lot of opportunities and you decided multifamily. So first off, I want to find out really why did you choose that? Like, where did it even come from? And the second thing, once we're back from the break, the second thing I want to go into is just how, besides everything that we've heard up until now, just really understanding how you aligned with your business partner, how you were able to start closing on deals. So let's take a quick break and we'll be right back.
The show is brought to you by Blue Spruce Boardroom, Adam Adams' private inner circle program to streamline your success in the multifamily investment industry. Blue Spruce Boardroom is for those who want to passively invest in real estate and meet strong operators from around the country, and for strong operators who want to meet passive investors from around the country. When you join Blue Spruce Boardroom, you'll have access to Adam's private Facebook page, where you can get your urgent questions about your deals answered 24/7. Group coaching calls done virtually over Zoom, and exclusive weekend retreats. If you're ready to take your real estate investing to the next level, then you'll want to join Adam Adams' private inner circle program, Blue Spruce Boardroom. Fill out an application today.
And we're back with Mr. William Walker. This has been an enlightening, insightful episode for me. I really love just going through your journey, because I know there's a lot of listeners that are also in the corporate world. And I know there's a lot of listeners who are young and they're in their 20s. And I feel like when
trying to figure it out.
Yeah, when you're not in your 30s, 40s, and 50s, sometimes we put this automatic cap on what we can accomplish because, quote, we're too young, right? So a lot of people are saying that. And then a lot of people are afraid to leave the corporate world, but you did it, you accomplished it. And I've enjoyed going through your journey. So I promised the listeners, like when we got back from the break, we were really going to dive into why multifamily, because there's so many different things that you could do. So that's my first question to you, William. Like, you see all the possibilities out there and you clung to multifamily. Why?
To provide the lifestyle that I wanted to live, and mailbox money or passive income. Those were the two biggest driving factors for me into pursuing multifamily. And I like to hunt. I like the fixing something up that's disrepaired or broken down, and ultimately taking it through the investment life cycle.
Okay.
But in the beginning, it was lifestyle more so, and just having that freedom over my schedule, having the ability to earn passive income, and having the ability to be in control of my destiny to an extent.
And so was there anything else that was out there that you could see that would give you that freedom for your lifestyle that you were also considering at the same time?
Sure. I mean, going back to that Warren Buffett book I read, I think it was either starting a company or owning real estate. And to me, owning real estate it made sense to me. I had seen other people doing it growing up. It didn't come from a real estate family at all, but I could get my head wrapped around it. How I could digest and understand the idea of owning a property and renting it out long term. And I liked it excited me. It still does excite me. I love what I do, and it's still something I enjoy. Okay.
But you were looking at this opportunity. You knew that you could do these things, but your sights were on multi-million-dollar apartment communities, and the money that you had in the bank at the time was limited so much that you used your credit card to get there. So you must have believed in this so much, so passionately, that it had you put the credit card, even knowing there's going to be a listener for sure, at least one that's hearing this and saying, like, but if I didn't have $1 million in the bank already, like, how would I close on these things? So what was going through your mind when you overcame that and ultimately came to where you are today?
Yeah, I mean, that was one of the scariest things in my life, but I knew it could be done. I saw it on the corporate side. I saw it in the networking group. So I knew that people were getting it done, but ultimately it came down to, was I confident enough in myself to do it? And at that time, I felt like if I didn't get around people that were not these big institutions, and you've got to work your way up the corporate ladder for 20 years, unless I got around those people, then I never would. It would quickly accelerate my experience and what I wanted to accomplish. So at the time, it was a little bit of a gamble, and I'm glad I made that bet. But ultimately, it was a bet on myself, and then a bet to be around people that were in the business and doing the business and that I could align with.
Awesome. And so the second thing that I really wanted to get into, now that I understand kind of you deciding that, multifamily was your way, besides everything that we've really talked about all this whole episode so far, what were your steps into really being able to accomplish your dreams? Like, what did you have to do to partner with the right person, et cetera, that really got you to where you are today?
Yeah, I think a lot of times success seems like it happens very quickly, but really in the wake, there's a lot of things that have to happen. So the three biggest things that stand out to me were study. There's so much online that you can teach yourself. Network, so that when you get in the room with the right people, you're able to know the language, know the lingo, and be able to communicate effectively. And then go out and get experience. There was tons of things that I did for no pay or no promise of return, or really not even multifamily related, more just single family investment. But I went out and did it. I showed up. I underwrote deals, I talked to investors, and it ultimately gave me confidence to where when I was in front of the right people, I knew what I was talking about, and I had some experience that I could build on, not only on the corporate level in my networking and coaching group, but also out cutting my teeth trying to get single family done and smaller properties done, and just persistence and grit. Just not giving up. In 2016, when I joined that networking group, I met my business partner, who at the time I didn't know would become my business partner. We started working together 2 years later, but I met her at the time. I continued to follow up. I continued to network and see her at different events. I obviously knew what I was talking about, and I think I proved by moving across the country 2 times, by continuing to show up, continuing to take feedback and apply what I had learned, continuing to be at these investor meetings and kind of be the young guy that's just showing up all the time with a good attitude. Over time, those things build into momentum. And the biggest, catalyst was in 2018 when I had the opportunity to join forces with somebody that was 2 or 3 years ahead of me, that had gotten deals done. And I could come in as really sweat equity. I didn't have to have $1 million in the bank or $100,000 or however much to get the deal done. I was able to leverage my knowledge and my experience and grit and all the things that I had learned in the past 3 or 4 years to get to that position. But even then, I wasn't handed anything. It took about 6 months to get our first deal under contract, and I was underwriting 3 or 4 deals a day, and I was really hustling. I mean, I worked hard and still do work hard. So I think there's no substitute for hard work in education. If you're studious on what you want to do and you work hard, it's going to happen. But 6 months into that, joining my partner in 2018, we got a 160-unit property under contract. And the reason that we got that deal was because I was sitting in a ULI meeting, Urban Land Institute, which was a networking thing, really more focused on new construction than value add. But I met a lady in there, and she said, "You've got to meet my friend's husband. He's a loan broker, a loan originator." So, fast forward, I met him probably in March-ish 2018. Fast forward to June of 2018, we'd been talking almost every day. What are you looking at? What's he underwriting, kind of thing? What's debt pricing? He calls me up and says, "Hey, I just had a seller back out of this deal, and the broker's looking for a plug. I'm going to send you the information." And that was the first deal that we did, and it was because of just kind of being out there, networking. Deals don't always have to come from your traditional sources, but kind of just being active and working within the market and what the market gives you. Sometimes things fall into your lap. Now, I haven't gotten another deal from him yet, which I was hoping to get one a year out of him, but the law of the first deal was very true for us. After we did that first one in July of 2018, we went on to close a little over 1,400 units over the next 14 months. That was about 13 complexes that we purchased in that time. And it was a lot of hard work, but once you get the ball rolling and you've got lenders on your team, you've got brokers who know that you're a closer, you've got equity investors that are confident in your ability to run these deals, all these things start clicking and firing. But I think it takes a team to do it. And you can do it all yourself and put all those pieces together, but I think it takes a lot longer, and it's more difficult and probably not as enjoyable. So all of those things culminated in meeting the right people, understanding, what I was talking about, having experience, being persistent, not taking no for an answer. And ultimately when that first deal came, it's like the floodgates open up. And we had a ton of acquisitions last year, and we're looking to ramp up in 2020 and 2021 as well.
So cool. William, everything that you have done, where this success came from, I really feel like the listener has one really overlying theme to this. It's all to do with your grit, your persistence, your determination, your follow-up. It's out of the box. It's more than the norm. And if you're listening and you want to accomplish and be, within the top 1%, you can't do what the 99% does. You can't be comfortable. You can't be quiet. You have to get out of your comfort zone. You have to do more than the 99 percentile does. And so I look at your first deal with your first property, and you didn't have 20% in your bank account, but you still called around to different family members until you found the person that was willing to give you a variable interest rate and for a 2-year term, and you said, all right, let's do it. And you took action. And then it comes back to you're working for Ernst & Young, right? And while you're doing that, you know what you want. And I remember you saying it took you, was it 6 to 8 months from the time you made your first call to when you actually moved to Atlanta and was working with the people that you wanted to work with. Most people would have quit. Most people would not have spent 6 to 8 whole months doing that.
Yeah, it was really even longer than that. It was probably 6 to 8 months before I got that interview invite, and then probably a full 14 months before I actually got down there. But yeah, it was a long time. It took a while.
And then we fast forward to when, after you read that book and you're thinking, I want to join a program that's going to bring me closer to other people that are doing this because I know I can do it. And just the fear that you would have had, anyone would have had by putting that amount of money on a card when you don't have that amount of money in your bank account. And then we fast forward to, 2018, you meet your amazing partner who's a really good friend of mine. And in 2018, and for some reason, like, you spent 6 months looking for this deal. And I promise you, if that person at the ULI meeting didn't bring that deal to you in, what was it, March or June, if they didn't bring that deal to you, then you would have still had your head focused until it happened. Because there's something about those who have found absolute success that they burn the boats, right? Like Rod Cleef always says. They burn the boats. That's right. And they keep going until, they basically take over the island and sell out on the other boats. So I want to bring that tenacity out because some people who are wanting to get into real estate in any way or multifamily in any way, many don't understand to the level at which we need to truly be committed. And I think your story really shows that on every step of the way, the true commitment that you have to have by burning the boats. And there's only plan A, there's no plan B. It's like, we're just going to make this happen. And, multiple times it took you 6 months, 12 months, 14 months in order to get the result that you were looking for just for that next step. And so just to see where you were, in 2015 with your 2 houses all the way down to 2020 with the 1,400 doors that you closed in 14 months is outstanding. But it wasn't an overnight success. And that's really what I think the listener needs to understand. So, William, let's go here. It's time to end today's podcast. So what I want you to do is, for the listener who wants to reach out to you, maybe they want to passively invest with somebody who has the type of grit and tenacity that you have. Maybe they want to learn from somebody who's also been there, done that when they were young, and they just need that inspiration. Really, what's the best way for the listener to find William Walker and get a hold of you?
Yeah, sure. I'm on all the social media platforms, but most active on Instagram, Will Walker _3, and then at our property or company website, www.4mrei.com.
And just to be clear on the Will Walker _3, it's the number 3, not spelled out, right?
Yes, correct.
So what we'll do is I'll put all this into the show notes. So for the listener who wants to reach out to you on Instagram or email you, that information's in the show notes so they can reach out to you. William, I got to let you go. But I want to say I'm grateful for the time that we spent and like you going into your whole story. And I'm sure we'll bring you back on the show. So I'll let you go. But until next time, my friend, think outside the box. As a reminder, any investment opportunities mentioned on this show are for accredited investors only. And if you're interested in working with me and my team, then go to realbluespruce.com and click Get on the List. It's that simple. Just click Get on the List to start passively investing. This has been an episode of the Apartment Investing Show with me, Adam Adams. All rights are reserved, and if you haven't done so already, then make sure that you absolutely smash that subscribe button, and I'll see you on the next episode.